Good evening. I am Stephen Olvany, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I also call it the Darien Real Estate Department. I just like real estate that I've been doing. That's what I've been doing my whole professional career. I've been on the P&Z for about 12 and a half years. I started mid-2013, and I'm excited here to be with you tonight to deliver my 7th State of the Town address. 1 year I did take I skipped it because I had COVID, and the vice chairman gave it, but I'm going to do it again. This is actually one of the funnest nights that I have. As you can see by the, it's up there too. As you can see by the title of my address, it's we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. Rather than give you another typical speech, I thought we would reach out to all RTM members and find out what is on your mind. So we assembled a number of questions, and I also had a few common questions that I hear from our constituents. Every year I try to put a title or a theme to the speech, and this year's theme is "We're almost done." Okay, we're almost done. Don't worry about it. I know he said a lot. We're almost done. Trust me. First off, thank yous to everybody. Before I start, I want to start with the first question. I just want to acknowledge all my fellow members and the time and effort they put through 2025. I have 5 fellow members on the Planning and Zoning Commission. There are 8 members on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Am I supposed to be moving this?
Yeah, just now. You have to check the space bar or the arrow key. Just tap the arrow key for the next slide. There you go.
There we go. All right, cool. New technology. I don't have any drones, sorry. We're going to try that for next year. Where do we go? There are 8 members on the EPC and 9 members on the Architecture Review Board. In total, we have 31 volunteers on these boards, plus the Blight Committee. I'm here to represent all the boards and the commissions tonight. We also have a great staff. Just like John said, it is led by Jeremy Ginsburg, who does a fantastic job. They are all seasoned, qualified, and credentialed planning and zoning members. Whatever credentials they're in, like planners or engineers or water people, they have the credentials to do that. All of our boards are always looking for new volunteers. I got to get it again, I think, right? Bingo. All of our boards are looking for new volunteers, so if you do want to serve on one of our boards, please let me know by email or town hall or text messages. A lot of people do text me now. Somebody thinks I'm Daniel. I don't know who that guy is, but I keep getting a lot of emails for Daniel. As I mentioned, I've reached out to find out what's on everyone's mind. Of course, Darien residents are not usually shy with their voices and their concerns. And you know, by fellow commissioners and I, we do hear a lot of concerns. And we also are given a lot of thanks and accolades. We do listen to you at the end of the day. There's nothing that gets done in this town that does not have public input. So let's start with our first question. Bingo, look at that, this is fun. What's the result of the Accessory Drawing Units ADA regulation that was passed by the Zoning Commission in mid-2024? The ADU regulation took effect about a year and a half ago, and today gives us the opportunity to reflect on the results. So far, we've seen about 17 approvals, which is about 1 a month. All the approvals have been for 1-bedroom units of less than 1,000 square feet, which is the maximum that's allowed under the ADU regulations. About 2/3 of them are attached to buildings, and 1/3 are in detached separate structures, meaning a pool house, a garage, something like that. Bingo, there you go. They range in size from 280 square feet to 988 square feet, with most of them being in the 600 to 700 square foot range. My apartment in New York City, which was a 1-bedroom, was 832 square feet. So they're smaller than my apartment at home. The size of them is about a 3-car garage. What I do want to add is that most of them are for multi-generational living. There's a lot of people have their parents come in from wherever they live, Long Island, Queens, Brooklyn, upstate Connecticut, and now the grandparents are living with the children. There are a few that are for rental, not that many, but a lot of it is independent living. There was one woman that came in, I remember, she lives by herself, and her son was a fireman in town. She wanted to put an ADU in her house so her son could live in the house and take care of her. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. We had to work really hard to make sure it worked and fit our plan, but that's what we did. And there's a lot of examples like that. The Darien Planning Commission will continue to monitor this regulation, but it appears it's been successful in creating small one-bedroom units in town without impacts to our single-family residential neighborhoods. Darien's ADU regulation was clear in requiring sufficient on-site parking for the ADUs, and that all the ADUs meet the zoning setbacks and the requirements for the zones that they are in. Next question. Can you give us an update on the 2026 Plan of Conservation and Development? As required by state statute, the Commission is required to complete a plan every 10 years, and while our 2016 plan has served us well, it is time to evaluate where we are and where we hope to be in the future and continue to conserve and redevelop. Plan of Conservation and Redevelopment. We're about halfway through the process, which started in mid-2024. We're almost done. As you may recall, there was a public outreach session at the Mather Center in September of '25. We had a nice turnout and gave our consultants valuable information to begin preparing and the plan with the Commission. The plan's a blueprint for the future. It starts with a review of the demographics in town, with the data, what goes on here, the infrastructure, and what's under construction in the future. The Planning and Zoning Commission will continue to spend time, about 1 or 2 meetings every month with our consultants from H&H, which is named Hardesty in Hanover. They've been doing our traffic studies in Darien for at least 20 years, I think. We expect the draft to be completed by May of 2026, and it goes into effect in June or July of 2026. And once it's adopted, it will be a blueprint for future conservation and growth in the community. There we go. Okay. What new commercial tenants will we see in 2026? There's a lot of development in town. Everybody can see it every single day when we drive by. As part of Heights Crossing, we have a new garden catering, which is fantastic. And a quick shout out to them. If you go there for dinner between 5 and 7, it's a special. They take about 30% off the bill. I've checked it out. I thought the guy was wrong. We also have Sharky's, which is a little haircut store, which is actually a chain for kids. There is Heights Wine and Spirits. I went there and bought my wife a bottle of champagne recently. They're really good. The guy gave me 2 plastic champagne glasses, which I thought was nice. We have Goddard School, which is taking pressure off of our schools for the little kids. Chipotle's coming soon, and the other one, a lot of people, if you haven't been there yet, to Raphael's Bakery, place is off the charts. And in 2026, because it's really cold, we're going to have a new place called the Milkshake Factory opening up. As part of the Corbin District, there's going to be Rome, which is, everyone knows about Rome is, that's Lululemon for boys, for me. We also have Tati Bakery and Cafe, Hanuki, which I think is a sushi place. My kid likes sushi. FP Movement, which is going to be another gym. Framebridge, I'm not really sure what that is, but David Genoese will probably tell you that. Millie's Restaurant, and Go Hana, which is another restaurant. Note that in the summer of 2026, the second phase is scheduled to be completed with the retail and restaurants opening. The first thing that's going to open at Corbin is the commercial retail space, commercial space, and then the office space. The big tenants in town that is a bonus for Darien is Aon Insurance is moving to town, and also McKinsey Consulting, which I think John is a alumni of McKinsey. That's why he's so smart. We love office tenants in town. They come here during the day, they go to the restaurants, they go have lunch, they have dinner maybe, and then they go home. And a lot of people that work at these companies, including John, live in town. The thing that John was talking about earlier, and I want to stray a little bit for Jeremy, Darien is supposed to be 20 minutes from Greenwich, right? It's supposed to be. In the morning, it takes about 45 minutes to get there. A lot of the tenants from Greenwich are moving to Darien because the commute got so bad. That's why it's happening. So when he was talking about traffic going back on I-95, if everybody that used to work in Greenwich, and we're actually out of office space here, moves to Darien, the traffic is going to go down. Okay? I can talk about that till I'm blue in the face. In the fall of 2026, the apartments will become available for occupancy in phases. I don't think Bay Water's put any of those spaces on the market for lease yet, but I do know that phase 1 is all done. I also am pleased to note that earlier in 2026, Bay Water will be installing new power lines and data lines in the back of the Corbin District by I-95 to prepare for the installation of the new sidewalk, street lighting, and furniture along the post road in Corbin Drive. Okay, yep. Other projects that we do have, or tons that we do have, is the lady was really cool. She came about a year ago. She's a chocolatier. She's going to next door to Heights Pizza. It's called how do you pronounce it? There you go, chocolatier. She's going to be downtown, right? We also have the Cloud 10 car wash, which is near the Norwalk border, which is under construction. Another one that I think is really cool is we have a Mr. Falafel and Gelato shop going into Goodwives. They're going to be open from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. So like New Canaan, we follow New Canaan, you can go get your gelato after you have dinner. The other tent that's moving is Jenny Montgomery. Is at 800 Post Road now. They're moving into Corbin, and that space has already been backfilled by a, what's the name of the place called? Wondrous. A child's gym. That made the papers the other day, and you might see that coming up soon. So we really don't have a lot of excess space, but we have a lot of stuff that's coming in here that's great. What else we got? Next. Do I go through? Oh. Okay, good. What do we see in terms of development in the new year or 2 years ahead? Excuse me, we do have a good idea of the project that are in the pipeline and those that are approved in the last year or two. The projects underway now include Cedric Lofts, which should be completed in mid-2026. That's the building on the corner of Cedric Avenue and Old Kings Highway, right at the traffic circle. It's going to consist of 18 condominiums, and they're all one-bedrooms. That is right before you go into Goodwives Shopping Center, which actually changed its name. The next one on the list is 3 Parklands Drive. That's scheduled to be completed in mid-2027. It's a new building that replaced a former office building that was almost vacant, adjacent to Selleck Woods, Dunlap Woods, and then the Selleck Senior Housing Project. That's going to be 57 brand-new units and a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom units. I bet you a nickel that's going to be a older demographic class, where it's located and the quietness of the area. Next, we have Thorndale Circle, which is scheduled for completion in 2027. That is what John showed you. It's the old Nielsen's project that was in the back there. That's 175 dwelling units going to be there in 5 buildings. What they did is they're replacing 5 basically vacant or Class B office buildings with 5 new apartment buildings. And it's 50 affordable units, right? Is it 20? It's 25 affordable units. Yeah, it's 25 affordable units. As part of that, they're also going to renovate a couple of the medical office buildings in there. There's a medical office building that's on the corner, which has got an imaging center in it, and the other office building that's next to it, where actually Jerry's office is. It's a total redevelopment of the former office park, like I said, behind Nielsen's Florist. The one office building is remaining, and the other office building had been demolished, and you saw the construction there. It will be a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. ARB did a great job reviewing that project. The developer is Tremont Crow, and a lot of it's going to look really nice when it's finished. The other one, that's under review right now is called Heights Corners. That's being reviewed by the P&Z Commission and the ARB Commission. That is a donut that's in the middle of a hole on Heights Road between Federal and Heights Crossing. The proposal is for 3 properties. It was 3 properties. It was 2 vacant buildings and a little lot that I was called the black lot, and there was a guy that had his lawnmower equipment in there. That's where he was. Those are being combined on either side, technically combined by zoning on either side of Edgerton Street. The brick building and plus the long-time parking lot. The Architectural Review Board is still looking at it. And it'll be a nice mixed-use building with commercial on the ground floor and apartments above once approved. It's supposed to, right now, slated for 20 total units. All of our housing in town by regulation is 14% affordable. You can either put the affordable units on-site, off-site, or pay the town a fee in lieu. Relative to the fee in lieu, we do have a bunch coming in now. I think the next one comes from, next one comes from the Cedric Lofts. There's over $1 million in the Darien Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is a big deal. The other one that's being reviewed right now, the old gas station that is on the corner of Sedgwick and the Post Road, was a Shell station. That's proposed to be a new gas and convenience store. It's directly across the street from 800 Post Road. John alluded to it earlier about traffic. We're looking hard at that one because of traffic. It's a great idea. It's taking down 2 buildings, putting up 1. The square footage, the total square footage is declining, but we're still in the process of looking at that one. We already talked about Clyde Now Car Wash, and the other one that's kind of really cool too is 76 Tokenique Road. That building was vacant for 5 years. Guy built it a long time ago for his own use. They thought about putting a Montessori school in there. It recently sold. They're going to put, I think, 4 apartments on the 2nd floor and commercial space on the ground floor in the basement. So that's another one that's going to come back to life. There are a bunch of other renovations that we could talk about, the medical office buildings and whatnot, but I think you guys got the flavor of what's going on. There we go. What's the commission doing to encourage more pedestrian-friendly town and encourage more bicycle use, and how we get more crosswalks? This one I really actually like. As part of each application for multifamily housing or commercial development submitted, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviews traffic and parking. We also send this over to the police department and the fire department for them to review it also. One of the topics discussed is how each part can address pedestrian and be bicycle friendly. For example, the commission is encouraging more bike racks and bicycle storage within the larger buildings. Some people put it in there automatically, some people don't. We tell them to put it in there and say it's a really, really, really good idea if you do this. Lo and behold, it happens. New sidewalks are being required to be constructed by the developers when and where appropriate. This will supplement what John was talking about, was the annual sidewalk program that's put forth by the town every single year. You may have recently seen the brand new sidewalks on the east side of Corbin Drive, and those are actually really nice, on the south side of West Avenue and on Heights Road between Hollow Tree Ridge Road and Noroton Avenue. All those, the one that goes from Heights Road to Hollow Tree Ridge Road goes all the way up to Middlesex Middle School. And if you go there in the morning, you see kids flowing up and down Hollow Tree Ridge Road going in there. And if now we have Chipotle and Garden Catering opening, you're going to see half the town's middle school kids hanging out there after school. So you may want to put a monitor over there. I didn't tell you that. The decision to where and when to put crosswalks falls on the local traffic authority, which is called the LTA, or the Police Commission for Town Roads. On state roads, the commission, and state roads, any decision on crosswalks falls on the state of Connecticut. David Genovese, as part of Corbin District, did get a crosswalk that's going to be lighted on the post road. It's a mid-block one. We're requiring the developer to put, if approved, one on Edgerton Street between Edgerton, which is Heights Crossing, and then Federal, which is Darien Commons. The roads, the following roads are state roads: are the Boston Post Road, Tokenique Road, which is Route 130, Hoyt Street, which is 106, and then Mansfield Avenue, which is 124. There we go. Why does the Planning and Zoning Commission allow builders and developers to put forth amendments to zoning regulations or maps? Some people really don't like that when they change the zoning codes, but state statute allows anyone to put forth an amendment to the zoning regulations or the zoning map within a community. The statute requires the Planning and Zoning Commission to hold public hearings on an application and make a formal decision. The standard that the commission must use is to whether the application is founded to be consistent with the town plan of conservation and development. That's what we have to make sure it makes to be able to approve it. Sometimes the Planning and Zoning Commission will put forth an application itself. Recently, the town did do the accessory dwelling units, as I noted earlier, but also we did a new regulation for stormwater management regulations. The proposal was to modify Section 880, which a lot of people talk about in our town, which provides stricter regulations for builders and developers and property owners to manage stormwater on the site of their own properties. Another recent amendment put forth by the commission itself was to ban all cannabis businesses in the town of Darien. The commission also changed its regulations when obligated via the new state statutes. For example, in 2021, the governor signed Public Act 21-29 into law with an effective date of October 1st, 2021. That law prohibits zoning regulations from establishing minimum floor area that is greater than minimum floor area that is greater than the minimum floor set forth in the applicable zoning in town already. What that means is that we had a regulation that you couldn't have apartments that were less than 900 square feet. We actually changed that to make it less than 500 square feet. The reason behind that is a 900 square foot apartment is more expensive than a 500 square foot apartment. There aren't a lot of them in town, but there are a couple of buildings that do that. Where are we up to now? Yeah, this is a fun one. Wouldn't it be great if we can get some of the power lines in town buried? Yeah, it would be. It's actually required, but it's a really expensive endeavor. And it was most recently accomplished over at Grove Street, and that's about 25 years ago. Next up, the underground lines will be now run on the Boston Post Road along the Corbin block. In this instance, the developer, which is Baywater Properties, is coordinating the project, which will make a beautiful improvement to our downtown. If you look at the picture, you can see those power lines all over the place. It looks like spaghetti. So that's going to be something that's cool. John talked a little bit about that. Why does Norwalk and Stamford have so many smoke shops, but Darien has none? I wonder why. It came clear, about a year ago, it came clear to Planning and Zoning Commission members that there was no interest in having smoke shops in Darien. The commission put forth a regulation change to ban smoke shops, vape shops, and tattoo parlors throughout the town. You're never going to see a tattoo sign in a window in our town. You're also not going to see a vape shop sign. That amendment was adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission about a year ago. Okay. What role does the state of Connecticut play in Darien's zoning regulations? John mentioned that a little bit. As I noted, the Planning and Zoning Commission must react to laws that are passed on the state level. This was the case in 2021 with Public Act 21-29, which no longer allowed the minimum floor sizes for apartments. The commission had to react to that by eliminating the law that we had. In 2023, the state legislature passed 23-142, which limited how local regulations can treat in-home childcare. Thus, the commission also was obligated to amend the regulation on that case. This was also the case when the state allowed cannabis businesses in 2021, which gave rise to a larger number of smoke shops and vape shops throughout the state of Connecticut. At the time, the Darien Planning Zoning Commission felt that it was needed to respond by banning smoke shops and vape shops as well as the cannabis businesses. The way that was done is we did a moratorium for 1 year, then I think we did it for 2 years, let the dust settle, and then after the fact, we said, that's okay, we don't need them here. Where am I? Yep, there we go, so I said that already. Another example that the town must comply with is outdoor dining for restaurants as of right. We actually really like that a lot, but the state came in and said that you have to allow it everywhere. You hear about that in the papers for New York City. They're having issues with that. But we're actually kind of cool. We're kind of in good shape here. But as you can see, the state legislature gets more involved in local zoning on a variety of topics. This is similar to the next question submitted to me, which relates to the recent bill that passed at the state legislature last month relative to housing, which affects all communities in the state of Connecticut. Is it down here? Yes, okay. Is the state aware of what we're doing here in town? The answer to that is yes. In 2024, Governor Mott came to visit the Corbin District, and at the same time, Heights Crossing was under construction. To be honest with you, he was kind of really surprised. More recently, we've been getting a lot of press in the papers from Hertz Media. There's a front page article this past Wednesday on what's going on in town. There was one in the middle of summer that talked about $300 million of investment in town. There's a history behind that, but the reporter used to be the editor of the Darien Times. Now she has a bigger role to do that. Her name is Sandy Diamond Fox, and she just does a great job. Then more recently, about 2 months ago, State Senator Bob Duff and CeCe Mara came to visit Darien, along with our own Tracy Mara, who's always here, and other dignitaries. We all toured Noroton Heights. It was called the walking tour. They used that area as a great example of transit-oriented development. They came away impressed with the walkability of the area, and Darien is now the shining example of a poster child of best practices for the state of Connecticut. At the end of that meeting, a number of folks came up to me after the meeting and asked how their communities can replicate what we have done. What I can tell you is that we started on this in 2010. The Noroton Heights Overlay District was passed on October 5th, 2010. That's 15 years ago. We don't do anything fast in our town. David Genovese's project in downtown was at least 10 years ago. But it was clear to me when the people asked you that question that we're doing something right. There was people there from Westport, Wilton, Danbury, the state centers I spoke about. They were like, wow, can you come up to our town? I said, actually, no, I can't. But Jeremy can. What else we got next? Tell us more about the town's authority to set standards versus the state of Connecticut's ability to impose requirements upon communities relative to zoning. And a follow-up question, how will the Planning and Zoning Commission deal with the new Connecticut housing legislation if it takes away from local control? It is a big concern of ours, so yes, it's a big concern on everybody's mind. It is the ramifications of House Bill 8002, which was signed by the governor in late November, which is actually the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, before everyone went home for Thanksgiving weekend. You may recall that a prior bill was passed in the spring which was called 5002, and that was vetoed by the governor in June. There was a lot of small communities down in Fairfield County that chimed in, including our first selectman, reached out to the governor and said, this really does not work for our town. Negotiations were held over the summer and fall relative to modifying that bill to make it more palatable to the governor and to many, but not all, local communities in the state of Connecticut. The bill that was signed is known as House Bill 8002, which I said. It's 104 pages long with 53 separate sections. I think A.B. Zapatak has read the whole thing from front to back, but obviously it's way too much detail to cover this evening. Towns are still figuring out what actions need to be taken at the local level. Some of the portions of the bill go in effect on January 1st, 2026, which is about 23 days from now, and others have already taken effect. Back to the next one. Yep, there we go. The planning and zoning staff, led by Jeremy, is going to go to a number of meetings and training sessions to better understand the bill's impacts on Darien and possible regulation amendments and studies of what need to be done at the local level. We're likely to see changes for some of our regulations, possibly the town zoning map in response to that bill. A few of the items in House Bill 8002, now known as Public Act 25-1, middle housing development as of right. Middle housing development, 2 to 9 units are allowed by a summary process similar as an as-of-right approval on any area zoned for commercial or mixed-use development. So you can convert a commercial building to a residential building as of right or a summary application. The difference in our town, which we have to figure it out, is we have ARB, Architecture Review Board. We also have the local traffic authority, the police department, and the fire department, plus the health department that look at all this stuff, and also the sewer commission. So we have to figure out how that's going to work out. The next thing is tiny home protections, prohibits the manufacturing of homes prohibits manufactured homes from being treated differently under municipal zoning and other similar residential developments, regardless of size, potentially adding additional flexibility to the use of tiny homes. Those are like pool houses. You can buy it online. They cost I think they cost $1,000 a foot, and you have to put it in your backyard. It's got to be affixed to a foundation which can't move. We're not going to see those in town, but that's okay. DOH as statewide authority, the Department of Housing may, with approval from the Council of Housing Development, develop housing on state land. They may also sell or lease the land for housing in our town. We do have a couple significant size pieces of state-owned land in our town. We've been in discussion with the town, with the states in that some way, shape, or form. That's actually at the first selectmen's level. That did happen in Westport. If you know anything about the Saugatuck train station in Westport, that's a lot of state-owned land. It took them, I think, 3 years for the town of Westport to get control of that land. And then they gave it to a developer, but they still never built anything there. Statewide wastewater study, as required by the Office of Policy and Management, that's the OPM, DEEP, and the Council of Housing Development to conduct a statewide water capacity study, which must be completed by July 1st, 2026. We don't have a wastewater treatment plant in Darien. Our wastewater stuff goes to Stanford. We can't tell Stanford to make it bigger. There's some like pump stations in town, but there's nothing we can really do about that. When Norwalk expanded their wastewater treatment plant, they were supposed to give some of it to Ridgefield. They landed up not doing it to Ridgefield. So I don't know how that's going to work, but that's something that's going to happen. Housing growth planning. The town must adopt a plan or join their council of governments, which is the COG John was talking about, and regional detail to develop strategies to increase affordable housing units. Like I said earlier, our affordable housing figure is 14% of a new project, anything over 4 units. Other towns only have 10%. Some have actually 0. Regional housing needs. It assigns the Council of Governments a responsibility to set town-by-town affordable housing goals and inform the Office of Policy Management, housing needs assessments, and technical support. Like John said earlier, we don't really have a whole lot of vacant land in town, and there's not many spots you can put more housing. So I'm a little worried about that because someone else can tell you what to do, but I think we're going to be okay. The next one is state has eliminated the town's ability to require on-site parking for multifamily projects of 16 units or less. For larger projects, they have said that the state can require, based upon a developer-funded study, or no more than 1 space for a studio apartment, one for 1 bedroom, 2 spaces for 2 or 3 bedroom units. We may need to modify our zoning code for that. We already did it twice already, relative to that, but I don't think it's going to be a big issue. Needless to say, that bill, which I said is 100+ pages, there are lots of provisions in it. As you can see by the slide, many of them relate to parking. To the next slide. Yep, we did this already. Yeah. Many of them relate to parking. We have concern about buildings that may be constructed without sufficient on-site parking, but we're of the belief that many developers will want to provide on-site parking. In our town, parking actually adds value to a project. It does not detract from it. I'm not sure that buying or renting a unit with no parking on site is going to be super attractive to many people who live in Darien. With that said, thank you for everyone who did submit questions. If anyone wants a question now, feel free to grab the microphone, or else we'll move on to better people. You can tell that the town continues to be under development pressure, and the state of Connecticut legislature continues to get more and more involved in local zoning. At the same time, the Planning and Zoning Commission is working on our 10-year plan of conservation development, which will guide us going forward. We're here at the local level to continue to find the right balance between being a mid-sized to small New England town, tucked between 2 of the largest cities in the state of Connecticut, being Norwalk and Stamford. At the same time, the state is putting more pressure on communities like Darien, but not only Darien, to allow more housing and less local review. I am very concerned with State Bill 8002, and it will not be the last piece of legislation that chips away from those local zoning. But we are trying to hold the line. Like I said earlier, we're almost done. I would guess that additional legislation will come in future years as the legislator realizes that there are many more factors at work relative to what gets built rather than the local zoning code. We will continue to work with Darien's legislators, including Tracy Marr and Bob Duff and whoever else wants to help us to understand the potential impacts of the various bills, and if necessary, send in or give testimony, which I've done in the past along with the First Selectman's office and for the last 3 First Selectmen that we have had. There are many changes coming from Hartford that we continue to monitor, understand, and respond to them. On a brighter note, I expect that the final Corbin District project will be coming complete in 2026. As I said, it will be done in the near future. Noroton Heights is also nearly done. Those projects, our downtown and the Heights, will become more walkable and be reinvigorated as a local business district and a community business district with restaurants and retail uses, and also big office tenants and small office tenants. We're quite pleased with the changes in the Noroton Heights, and I expect and also pleased to the final outcome for the Corbin District once that construction is completed. So with that said, in conclusion, I want to wish all of you the best in 2026 and have a healthy, happy holiday season, and thank you very much for your time.